Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Let's dive in. First of all, there were, of course, a great deal of things happening last week, much of which, of course, I couldn't cover. And I want to quickly hit on those here right at the top of the show. Again, even the media doesn't spend a lot of time on this. And this first particular story, I don't think I heard them spend a great deal of time on it whatsoever. I also think this is a rather big deal. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was one of the operations that was taking place back in 2020. Again, if you recall, and I've brought this up on the show before, but back in 2020, when Donald Trump was having all of those task force meetings regarding quote-unquote COVID, in the middle of all of those task force meetings, one particular day, General Milley was there, and he showed up, and he basically said that they're going after the cartels in Mexico, Central America, and South America. Now, if you look at what's happened since is you have us controlling the Panama Canal, as the story goes. You have the president of El Salvador being placed there, and of course ridding his country of copious amounts of drugs, cartels, if not all crime, by and large, highly popular. And now you have the president of Colombia, who was just elected, who just ran on getting rid of cartels and stopping the drug trade and the whole thing in Colombia, which everybody knows, again, Colombia is one of the largest producers of cocaine in the entire world. Again, I don't think that this is accidental. Would not surprise me if this was, again, military, not necessarily CIA, because the CIA in the past, of course, has been running those drugs and been a part of keeping those drug cartels around and working with those cartels. I mean, even endless movies have been laid out regarding all of that and those truths, along with the endless books that have been written and the endless documentaries and you name it. But if military is the only way, then it would make sense that back in 2020, or at least maybe even before then, earlier in the first Trump administration, we were already down there working things around in such a way that the right people would end up being in the right positions at the right time to then, of course, work together with our military and their own military and root out the bad people within their military, because let's face it, they're bought off too. They have bad people in their law enforcement, their military as well, and of course, they have to be rooted out as well, because all these countries, again, they have their own deep states. We aren't the only one that does. It's every country. But with that said, last week, you had Pete Hegseth going down there to Colombia and openly again saying that the United States military, in combination and in partnership with Colombia's military, are going to be rooting out these cartels. This is a huge deal. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if this has already happened to a great extent, but again, the American public is just picking up on this, and it was just a little blurb, basically, in the media. But I think, again, this is bigger than what the media wants to portray. Here's Grok's kind of breakdown of this from a more specified level. It says renewed and intensified partnership beginning in August of 2026 and onward. Conservative President Abelardo de la Espriella, I'm saying that right, probably not, took office on August 7th of this year, 2026, after campaigning on the hardline security platform against traffickers and armed groups, with explicit plans to partner closely with the United States. The Trump administration moved rapidly to elevate cooperation. Key elements of this phase include a planned $1 billion U.S. security assistance package working with Congress to support the new administration, comparable in scale, adjusted to early plan Colombia packages. Now, just very quickly, I fully understand again that people would say that's $1 billion going to Colombia by, of course, paying United States security assistance to be down there and providing them intel and arms and perhaps other, actual people and a number of other things. But the amount of money that the United States would get back by putting $1 billion down there to root them out would be exponential. I mean, it would just blow that $1 billion out of the water. And the amount of money that we would be saving would be enormous. So it goes on here. It says Colombia joining the Shield of the Americas and the Americas Counter Cartel Coalition, a U.S.-led regional alliance targeting cartels and designated narco-terrorist groups. Medellin has been highlighted as a potential hub. That shouldn't shock anybody. Next, it says Plan Patriot 2.0 or similar framing as an evolution of Plan Colombia, Plan Patriota. Expanded intelligence support, U.S. technology and interoperability, coordinated joint military operations against foreign terrorist organizations and transitional criminal organizations. Restart of aerial coca extraction. Significantly expanded interdiction, asset freezes, protections of financiers, and efforts to reclaim territory controlled by armed groups, including demining, security, justice, and economic advancement. It then says explicit Colombian authorization for joint military operations with U.S. forces to destroy terrorist narco networks. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth publicly welcomed this and discussed possibilities of joint strikes against groups such as the ELN and FARC remnants. One official indicated the new partnership could surpass Plan Colombia levels of cooperation. Continued air interdiction assistance, certification, and focus on groups like Clan del Golfo, it's a nice little clan name, designated an FTO with leaders such as Otanel, I'm saying that right, probably not, previously extradited, and successors targeted. It says primary targets remain cocaine production, trafficking networks, and hybrid armed groups that tax or control coca economies. And it lists some of those names, of course. It says the strategy frames these as narco-terrorism threats to both countries and the hemisphere, linking them to U.S. overdose deaths, violence, and migration. It says overall assessment and persistent challenges. The partnership has demonstrably strengthened Colombia's state capacity, reduced certain forms of violence, removed thousands of traffickers via extradition, and interdicted vast quantities of cocaine. Colombia evolved from a near-failed state in the late 1990s into a capable regional security actor. However, cocaine production has proven resilient due to sustained U.S. and global demand, adaptable cultivation, group fragmentation after leadership removals, and rural economic incentives. Eradication has faced environmental, health, and human rights criticisms, militarized approaches, risk civilian impacts, and balloon effects can shift production or routes. As of mid-August 2026, the relationship is in a phase of rapid reinvigoration and militarization under aligned leadership, with concrete plans for deeper joint action, expanded eradication, and regional coordination. And it says results will depend on implementation, congressional funding in the United States, Colombian political sustainability, and the ability to pair enforcement with durable rural development, unquote. Again, the reason I bring this up is really twofold. Number one, the media doesn't spend hardly any time on that particular story. And again, that's a huge deal, not just for Colombia, but for us and for all of the countries in between. I mean, again, in this hemisphere and frankly across the world, as everybody knows, this is common sense, the cartels have to be eliminated. All of them. And unfortunately, they're so vast that they, of course, own even bankers in the United States. I mean, if anybody's seen the movie Scarface, which is, a pretty accurate depiction of it by and large, you can see how vast and wide these groups are. And then again, when you start to pinch them at the local level, like at a banking level, they can just pick up and move. They can change leadership. They change faces. They change identities, and they just keep doing what they're doing. And then they find other ways to conduct business. But at the exact same time, I think that this happened back in 2020, because I remember seeing endless videos online of U.S. military in those areas, dropping from helicopters down into holes, individuals, again, taking footage of this with their cell phone and posting it on the internet, and I'm saying to myself, wow, isn't that interesting? The media is not covering any of this. I mean, they're not bringing it up at all. Now, there could be a variety of reasons for that. Again, it could be executive orders, which basically allows Donald Trump to openly take over the media and basically have them report on whatever he wants them to report on, in particular, not covering particular military operations in an effort, again, to make them a little bit more secret. That would certainly be a viable explanation as to why the media wouldn't want to cover it. Or again, the media doesn't want to cover it because the individuals who help fund the media, not just the viewers, but of course the banking system behind it, they don't want to promote any of this because they don't want to make it look like they're losing. One of the litmus tests, I think, on this, and this has been brought up by endless other people too, isn't it interesting that on the media we never see any of the so-called Ukrainian-Russian war taking place? There's just no footage of it on television anywhere. You might see a building on fire because some drone hit it, but then you start hearing numbers like 5,000 people are dying every single day over there. Again, it begs the question, why is the media not covering it? And I think the answer is, again, they don't want to make it look like Ukraine is losing or that they've already lost, which, let's face it, they already have. I mean, they don't have the arms, they don't have the people, they don't have any of the resources. And they also, of course, don't want to show individuals who are Ukrainian citizens, regardless of age, being kidnapped off of the street and then thrown into automobiles and then apparently or allegedly thrown to the front lines in order to end up getting killed by somebody. They just don't want to show any of that. So again, I think this is a good thing, regardless of what the media does regarding all of this. I think, again, going after these cartels is a fantastic idea. Again, look what happened in El Salvador. I think, again, that our military was directly involved with rooting out cartels in El Salvador. Because, again, their president seemingly came out of nowhere. And he's been the president since 2019, and he's still there. Again, I think we had something to do with that. I think we had something to do with either funding him or, again, putting him in a particular position where he would go after the bad people, of course, with our assistance, and root out as many of their own deep state as humanly possible, because, again, it was basically just being run by drug cartels. So what would say that we haven't done the exact same thing with Colombia? It's a fantastic move. I like it. Again, if you're going to carry out such an operation, you're not going to boast about it. You're not going to openly discuss it consistently. And of course, you're not going to play your hand before it's time. So I fully understand, again, why the media might not cover it. And again, it's possible because they're controlled to some extent, or again, they don't want to admit that they're losing. Now, here's another example, again, of something that the media is not going to dive into specifically. They'll mention fraud, for example, just sort of very broadly, as we all know, but they won't dive into exactly how this is being done to favor Sharia law, quote unquote, Muslims. And, of course, they're never going to bring up the fact that Jews engage in the exact same practice. And a lot of people, unfortunately, on social media won't even bring that up, but some people will. Either way, this is Natalie Winters. And again, she works for Real America's Voice over there and is occasionally, again, a co-host of War Room with Steve Bannon, if I'm not mistaken. But she said this last week. She said, Sharia financing is being adopted as official government policy across America. I found dozens of examples of cities, states, and federal regulators changing loan programs, tax rules, banking policy, and economic development plans to accommodate Islam. Here's a list. And again, it's rather extensive here. Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville Metro rewrote its own small business lending program to accommodate Islamic finance, announcing that Metco, quote, will now offer a Sharia-compliant modification option. Next, Minneapolis, Minnesota, which shouldn't shock anybody either. Minneapolis openly offers city-backed business financing that it says conforms with Islamic law, quote unquote. The structure avoids conventional interest, uses shared risk and lender profit, and can be matched with city financing. St. Peter, Minnesota, again, it says St. Peter's Economic Development Authority restructured a municipal loan around Sharia lending rules, making it, quote, structured to eliminate interest payments, unquote, and replacing interest with a 3.25% profit, quote unquote. Lewiston, Maine. Lewiston says that the city and CEI actually provided Islamic law-compatible commercial financing through interest-free loans with service charges, quote unquote. Another one in Maine. Official Maine legislative testimony says state law was changed so that state-chartered credit unions can now offer Sharia-compliant mortgage loans, quote unquote. Again, do you see what's happening here? This is all being done to make it easy for these individuals to move into a town near you, pay little to no interest on anything that they buy, in particular property. And then what do? Breed like rabbits, start to run for office, and then they take over an area. And it's the local governments at the state level Yes, they're left-wing states. Everybody already knows that, but it's happening lots of places. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. There's another example. Seattle, Washington, again. Another one in Seattle. Another one in Seattle. This post says Washington State's Department of Commerce explicitly recommends developing, quote, Sharia-compliant financial products, unquote, for underdeserved businesses. This is just endless. Vermont, Michigan, Maine again, Minnesota again. Two more in Washington State, Washington County, Oregon, St. Louis Park, Minnesota, again, another one in Minnesota, another one in Minnesota. It's just endless. This is absolutely endless. This piece of audio here I'm going to play was from back in, February 12th. And this is a Muslim individual openly talking about the amount of money, and he's smiling about it and bragging about it. And he's, again, openly saying that the Muslim Market Report demands full Islamic finance overhaul in America because the amount of money that Muslims spend in the United States exceeds that of the UK greatly. Again, he's basically saying, we spend so much money that you can't get rid of us, that we are basically a commodity. What, of course, he's not going to tell you is that that money isn't theirs, that this is American taxpayer money going to them, and then the banking system allowing these individuals to, again, receive these interest-free loans by and large, although not all of them, but reduced loans. Because remember, they're disenfranchised brown people, so they have to get a leg up and a hand out, as opposed to any other natural-born, hardworking American. And then as a result of that, of course, the money that they receive is taxpayer money, and then they spend it and put it right back into the system. But again, one of the things that Scott Bessent has openly said is we're getting rid of illegals in the United States. And he brought it up in the last Promethean Action video. And he said that right there is going to show that these companies are not only getting rid of illegal aliens, but at the same time they're having to hire more Americans, which is a good thing. Again, I hope that that's happening. Because if it's not, unfortunately, the argument that everybody is seeing online right now is this invasion that's continuing to take place. And again, it's cultural as well. Everybody knows, again, that they're trying to do whatever they can. All these different groups are trying to edge out white people. It's pretty obvious. But here's what this guy says, and again, about 2.5 minutes in 3, 2, 1.
One of the things that made the Thrive conference really special is because they launched a very important report. They launched the North American Muslim Market Report, which was put together by the Dinar Standard and Muslimi. And this level of data analysis and research about the North American market, the Muslim market in North America, has never been done before like this. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to share with you the most interesting data that came out of that report. The US Muslim consumer spending was over $170 billion in 2024. Compared to the UK, that is actually a lot more. In the UK, the estimate is less than 80 billion. So here is data proving that American Muslims have more wealth. But an interesting question, how many Muslims are in America? It's actually 7.47 million. Only 2.2% of the entire North America population. The other interesting data that we got from the report is that the median age of the Muslim community in North America is 34. So it's relatively young. 59% first generation, 21% second generation, and 17% third generation. The ethnicity breakdown was also very interesting. 36% Asian, 34% Arab and white, and 25% black. The final thing I'll share with you is the most unmet needs. Where is the demand and the gaps in the market? So the top 5 unmet needs of Muslims in America. Number 1, housing finance. Number 2, investments. Number 3, personal insurance and pensions, Sharia compliant insurance and pensions. Then you've got medical and car financing. So here's some massive opportunities for anyone who's willing to take it. I highly recommend that if you are an entrepreneur and you're interested in the US market, in the North American market, which includes Canada, to grab yourself a copy of the report. We'll share the link below somewhere in the description.
Now, who do you think taught them this? Did they just wake up one day and then they had all this figured out on how to take advantage of the American system? Again, when he says entrepreneur, what he means is if you want to take advantage of the American system, we will teach you how to do it. But who taught them how to do it? Only the Jewish lobby and Jewish bankers could teach them how to take full advantage of American taxpayers. It's that simple. And they're both working together. Again, it's an invasion. You have to have partners in an invasion. And if you're going to try to take over particular establishments, then again, you have to have partnerships with particular people. The church, of course, has also been overrun, as we know. The COVID lie should prove that to just about anybody, and the way that they all buckled and the way that they all, again, bent the knee and just went along with the mainstream narrative. But this right here is also proof. This was from LifeSite News. It was, again, this is from last week. It was titled, Jewish Scholar Elected to Lead Catholic Biblical Association. The Catholic Biblical Association emphasized that Jewish professor Amy Jill Levine's standing with Rome is best recognized by the fact that she has 3 audiences with Pope Francis. It says the following, quote, a Jewish New Testament scholar, newly elected as president of the Catholic Biblical Association, stated that one of her major aims is to confront supposedly anti-Jewish interpretations of Christian scripture. Professor Amy Jill Levine will serve as the association's president for the 26-27 year. Announcing her election, the CBA noted that Levine was the first Jewish scholar to teach the New Testament at the Pontifical Biblical Institute in Rome in 2019, and that her standing with Rome is best recognized by the fact that she has 3 audiences with Pope Francis, quote unquote. She said the following here, or at least this was according first to the National Catholic Reporter. They put together an article hailing her election and saying that she has argued that many clergy members, quote, continue to rely on commentaries acquired during their seminary education decades ago, rather than newer research on the Jewish contexts of Jesus, the Pharisees, and the Gospels, unquote. She went on and said, I would like to get this better material into the hands of people who are speaking to people in the pews, into the hands of people in parochial schools who are teaching biblical studies to teenagers or to little kids, and mainstream it, unquote. Levine told NCR, quote, it hasn't been done, unquote. She describes herself as a guest in the house. Her approach to Jewish Christian scholarship is not to challenge Catholic doctrines, she said, but to examine the historical and human setting in which Christianity emerged. Well, of course it is. Her entire position and her entire purpose is an ideological one because she's Jewish. And her entire purpose, of course, is to shield any criticism of anybody who might happen to be Jewish by using the system around them where they exist. And then she openly said again, we're going to put the right books in the right hands and the right people for the right people, and we'll get them as young as we possibly can, again, parochial schools. And then everybody will just understand that we are, quote unquote, the chosen people, even though that's not what the Bible says whatsoever. Again, infiltration instead of invasion. But if you do both, that's not good either. Case in point, let's slide right into education now. This was on Zero Hedge, again from last week. It was titled Outrage as Texas Schools Bus Kids to Mosque so they can experience Islam, quote unquote. Outrage has exploded as public school students in Texas were loaded into yellow school buses and driven straight to an Islamic center so that they could experience Islam up close. The organizers could barely contain their excitement. In their own promotional video, they celebrated how the kids showed up and potentially left transformed. This is not happening in some blue state sanctuary city. This is in Texas. Again, lots of videos describing a lot of it. It says over 30 high school students from Humble ISD Kingwood High School and, no way I get that right, Atasodia High School were taken on a school day field trip to the Centro Islamico operated by Islam in Spanish in the Houston area. The visit included a tour, lunch from halal food trucks, observation of midday prayer, and a presentation. Students were even provided scarves. There you go. Why not? A CARE Houston representative spoke to them about their, quote, rights as Muslim students and allies, unquote. The Islamic Center's own video titled along the lines of students visiting a mosque and leaving changed shows the school bus pulling up and the teens filling inside. A representative states, quote, it's always excited to have the opportunity to speak to the general community about Islam, unquote. I'm going to leave it there. I have a couple of questions. Number one, is this the right to religious instruction kind of stuff? Because if so, this unfortunately is the rotten side of that coin. Because we know again that LifeWise does it with Christians, which is great. But if this is the ugly side of the other side of the coin, well, then again, this is what right to religious instruction ultimately leads to, much like, again, the Satanist groups that can exist with right to religious instruction as well. So, is it that? Or is it Muslim students who are already attending these particular mosques and they're basically just doing this as a promotional kind of thing in order to invite more people who know basically nothing about it and are remarkably impressionable given the fact that they're younger kids? Could be the latter also. The article does wrap up here. It says, now the same networks that build exclusive enclaves, push mega developments, operate unauthorized institutions, and secure city approvals for expanding centers are welcoming taxpayer-funded public school buses full of Texas teenagers for guided immersion. Texas has long been a place that defended its culture, its laws, and its Christian heritage. Public schools exist to educate American children in the foundations of this country, not to deliver them as a captive audience for any foreign ideology's outreach. Again, here's the problem. Greg Abbott is a cancer in Texas, and he is owned by the Jewish lobby. They surround him like nobody's business, which means, again, who's allowing for this Muslim invasion of Texas? It's the Jewish lobby. They're the ones funding it. They're the ones helping write the laws. They're the ones teaching these local individuals how to obtain property in order to, again, erect whatever mosque they want, school development, etc., etc. It doesn't matter if Greg Abbott puts his wheelchair wheel down even for a moment regarding any particular move. For example, the whole Dallas airport fiasco. This was something that happened last week, again, where they were openly saying that they were going to have separate bathrooms for Muslims that would have feet washing stations. And that, again, as a result of Donald Trump's, whatever it was, I believe it was an executive order from last week, openly, again, seeking to renovate a number of different airports across the nation, Dallas being one of them. And he, of course, made fun of the airport and said it's one of the worst in the nation. Well, it's one of the worst in the nation because it takes in copious amounts of illegal aliens. And it takes in all these Muslims. I bet if you fly, and again, I wouldn't know because I haven't done it, but I bet if you get on a plane from Dallas to just about anywhere in the United States, it's packed with Muslims. It would have to be. But again, this is part of the invasion. And then they just make these little inroads and they test the law to see how much they can get away with. But now finally, apparently, those particular grants or those subsidies have been withheld or threatened to be withheld if they don't remove or say that they're going to remove these particular Muslim feet washing stations within particular airports. The simple fact that we're even having this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, is disgusting. Because this, again, is the invasion. And it's infiltration at the exact same time. But people have got to understand who's funding this and who's allowing all of this to take place. It's blackmailed politicians, it's the Jewish lobby, it's the two of them shaking hands behind the scenes, and Muslims are a part of it also. So who's not involved in any of it? White Christians. Isn't that interesting? They're also not asking the Asians, by the way, or the Hispanics, are they? They're not asking them what they think. No. Asians are Christian. Hispanics tend to be Christian. Everybody knows this. So are whites, by and large. But they're not involved in any of this. Unless, of course, again, they're the politicians who are being bought and sold and blackmailed in order to allow all of it. But that's what's going on here. And I have a piece of audio that will kind of prove the stupidity of a lot of these politicians. And again, I wouldn't even go so far as to call this person a politician. They're just an idiot, because school board members really aren't politicians, and they're not supposed to be. In the town where I live, just to provide a little background here, in Oxford, Ohio, the Talawanda City School Board has a board member. They're all terrible, except for Don King, by the way. Again, they're either gay, or they're a communist, or they're a gay communist, or whatever. But either way, one of these members is a Matt Wyatt. And he's highly political, and his job on the board, basically his responsibilities, to bring up state legislation, federal legislation, and things like that he thinks impacts education. Now, here's what these board members are supposed to do, in particular the one in his position. They're not supposed to politicize anything, but they are supposed to bring up particular legislation, possible legislation, and how it might impact their district. He's not supposed to really tell everybody his bend on particular things, or what he thinks about particular issues, or even what he thinks about legislation. He can vote particular ways, and people, of course, can figure out how a person actually is by the way that they vote. It's rather obvious eventually. But just reporting the news, so to speak, from a legislative standpoint is basically all he has to do. But that's not what he does. And that's not what he's doing. And that's not what he's going to do. In fact, what makes this audio clip, I think, so astounding, and I watched it just the other day, the full board meeting, and it was a jaw-dropping level of stupidity throughout the entire board meeting, which, again, these people are in charge of a multi-million-dollar corporation, and they have no idea what they're doing. I mean, absolutely zero. They waste money like you would not believe for a variety of different things, and then they beg for more of it. And then they reappropriate money, or they punish particular people for not paying up, or whatever it is. But either way, in this piece of audio, you're going to hear Matt Wyatt openly demonstrate that basically he listens and watches CNN on a constant basis and just repeats anything that they say. But then, of course, he doesn't understand the definition of a contradiction, and that he's actively and in real time contradicting himself. He is saying, again, you'll hear him, don't trust the President of the United States when it comes to vaccination, but you should listen to me, say get vaccinated, and you should listen to your pediatrician, but you should also trust yourself. He's all over the place. He also mentions a House bill and a Senate bill at the very top, and openly again and very quickly says that he's disappointed in it, that these two things are moving forward and he doesn't like it. I'll get into those specifically after the audio clip. I just want you to hear his stupidity first. So give him a listen, unfortunately, in 3, 2, 1.
And there are a few bills that were passed last time that we know they're going to be up again. Passed in one chamber, but not the other. One is the 10 Commandments display measure, mandated, and also the mandated fetal development video, which both of which unfortunately cleared the House chamber. So that's the House, the State House and Senate update. One thing I'd like to say that happened this week: the President of the United States signed an executive order about vaccinations, saying that you must, that school districts should, or states should adopt rules to go from 17 down to 11 for mandated vaccinations. And he also tied autism with the vaccinations. We have studied this for over 25 years. There is zero evidence of that. And I think that needs to be stated publicly as much as it possibly can. And I think that you should listen to your pediatrician rather than someone who said that you should inject bleach into your body to clear yourself of COVID. Or from a health secretary who said he snorted cocaine off toilet seats. So I think your pediatrician knows what's best for your child, and also you do. Use common sense, trust science, and for goodness sakes, vaccinate your child. Thank you.
He's an actual NPC. He's a non-player character in a video game. He's an actual meme, this guy. I'm telling you. It's astounding. He even said trust the science. He said trust the science. He was one of those guys. You know he was one of those guys who had that sign in his front yard, "In this house, we believe." And well, in this house, we say gay and retarded, and you're gay and retarded. Unbelievable. Now, here's what he doesn't like. Beyond the fact, of course, that people know more about vaccination being poison than apparently he does, because he doesn't want to read anything. And I'm about to prove to you that he doesn't even know what he's talking about when it comes to state legislation. Again, he operates on emotion, not fact. That's too bad, because he's an idiot. The 10 Commandments and historical documents displays was Senate Bill 34. Senate Bill 34, known as the, again, Historical Educational Displays Act, or Display of Founding Documents of Historic Significance Act, was passed by the Ohio Senate 23-10, mostly along party lines, in November of 2025 and moved to the House. Here's what it requires. It requires boards of education in public school districts and applies to certain other public schools to display at least 4 of the following 9 documents in history or social studies classrooms for grades 4 to 12. He doesn't like this. He doesn't want social studies classrooms grades 4 to 12 to have at least 4 of these documents displayed in the classrooms. He's certifiable. Here are the documents right here. The Mayflower Compact, the Declaration of Independence, the Northwest Ordinance, the mottos of the United States, In God We Trust, and Ohio, With God All Things Are Possible, the 10 Commandments, the Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights, the United States Constitution, the Articles of Confederation. He doesn't like that. He's a communist. The description goes on. It says displays must be reasonably visible and accompanied by a description of the document's historical importance. Schools may accept donated materials or funds and can erect monuments or markers inscribed with one or more of the documents on school grounds. The Ohio Department of Education workforce is to provide online materials to assist with formatting and educational requirements. Again, school teachers should be smart enough to just make these documents on their own and know where to find them. This isn't tough. This is not a difficult thing. You can even display the book, probably. Again, open up one of these documents and the books where these documents exist. Just open them up, display them, and of course make them available to students. Heaven forbid. I mean, it's just face-rubbing insanity, but heaven forbid that every student actually be given a pocket copy of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. My God in heaven. He doesn't want that either, I bet. See, I've brought this up on the show before, and this is where I'm going to go off a little bit. And I've written about it on Substack as well. They don't know what quote-unquote separation of church and state even means. They think that's law. That's how dumb they are. They believe that that is law. They think, again, falsely, that it means that the church, religion, and the state, government, schooling, are to be separated. That's what they believe. Because that's what Thomas Jefferson, that's how he coined it, but that's not what he meant by it, and that's not what it means. Quote-unquote separation of church and state was a warning from Thomas Jefferson to very specifically say, if you separate the two, if you separate God from government or vice versa, both will go in their separate directions and be infiltrated and become perverse and corrupt. And he was right. But nowhere in the founding documents, anywhere, let alone in any law, does it say that there is supposed to be a separation of God and government. They're supposed to be one and the same, with God being at the forefront, as Thomas Jefferson very specifically stated. Matt Wyatt doesn't know this, because he's retarded. That's all. He can't read. He doesn't even know, again, that all of these documents are a part of that Senate bill, which isn't law. It's just being considered in the House. Now there's the fetal development video. He also doesn't like this either, because apparently he doesn't understand how humans are created. House Bill 485, the Enact Baby Olivia Act, quote unquote, was introduced by Representative Melanie Miller of Ashland, Ohio, in late September of 2025 and passed the Ohio House 59-27, mostly on party lines, on November 19th of 2025 and then moved to the Senate. It requires public schools, districts, community schools, STEM schools, and college preparatory boarding schools to include human growth and development instruction in the curriculum for grades 5 through 12. Some early versions reference grades 3 through 12, beginning with the 26-27 school year. The instruction must include at least, quote, one high-definition ultrasound video, at least 3 minutes long, showing the development of the brain, heart, sex organs, and other vital organs in early fetal development. Or number 2, the Meet Baby Olivia video produced by Live Action, an anti-abortion advocacy organization, or a substantially similar video depicting fertilization and each stage of human development in the uterus through birth, noting key markers of cell growth and organ development. He doesn't like either one of these options, and there are lots of options here. He doesn't want people in school to learn how humans are created. Think about that. He's a communist. And along with that, of course, he doesn't want people to know the specifics of the bill because he just gives his opinion. He just says, well, unfortunately, they're being considered. How about you read to the public the specificity of each bill? That's all you have to do. You don't have to give your opinion. Just read it to inform the public, because really, that's only your job as a school board member. You inform the public and then you vote on policy and money and blah, blah, blah. That's it. It's not to use it as some pulpit for you to, again, espouse your political beliefs, because beliefs aren't facts. And if he just read the full thing for the public, they'd be more well-informed. But remember, trust the science, ladies and gentlemen, get vaccinated, and don't learn about human development, and certainly don't post any government document in a government class in school. He also doesn't want you to know this about the fetal development thing. It says parents and guardians can opt their child out via written request. Oh, okay. So the communists, again, can basically say they don't want their kids to see how children are born. That's fine. They're allowed to do that. But he doesn't bring that up either. This same district, along with other districts across the United States also, are handing out an National Education Association pamphlet, specifically, I believe, to at least their new educators. And it says the following here. It is titled, it's a one-sided pamphlet apparently, Free Speech Cheat Sheet for Public School Educators. There are 7 points on this. Give them a listen here, and then I'll break them down a little more specifically. It says, number 1, don't post during school hours. Share content only on your own time. Number 2, don't use school accounts or logos. Never imply that you speak for the school. Number 3, don't include your educator role in your bio or handle. Maintain clear personal professional boundaries. Number 4, don't air personal workplace grievances. Only posts that address broader public concerns are protected. Number 5, don't employ inflammatory rhetoric. Stay clear of community backlash that could impede school operations. Number 6, don't encourage student walkouts. Avoid promoting disruptions to the school day. And number 7, don't share identifiable student information. Always obtain written parental consent before posting student photos, videos, or other identifiable information, unquote. Now here's why the NEA is handing this out. They're handing this out because they're in deep shit, in my opinion. They're handing this out because year after year after year, American educators step on themselves all of the time. They violate all of these so-called cheat sheet rules, which are not rules. They are actual codes of conduct directly tied to their contracts. And what they're telling everybody, again, is that endless people have violated their codes of conduct and their contracts, which means they should be fired. And many of them do get fired. Many of them get protected. And therein lies the problem. But they're not telling people again to not do these things. They're basically saying do it differently. Find another way to do it. Find another way to push your ideologies on students and, again, express yourself freely. But just don't associate yourself with the school building or the school district while you're doing it, because you're costing us money. We're having to do investigations nationwide. We're having to engage in lawsuits. We're getting sued constantly. Try to not get us in too much trouble, basically. Again, they're pushing this out because they've been caught, and they keep getting caught. But everybody knows that the NEA really wants all of these things to take place. Which means just because they create this little cheat sheet thing, reminding everybody of what their contractual obligations really are, because again, teachers don't read their contracts, and they don't read the codes of conduct that pertain to their licensure either. As a result of all of that, they end up getting caught, and they end up getting fired. Again, this cheat sheet isn't going to help. It really won't. Teachers will still step in it. They will still get caught. They will still do stupid things online. They will still post pictures and videos of themselves online, screaming and yelling about God knows what, God knows when. But they'll do it because school is back, ladies and gentlemen. It's back in session. It was a very quick summer, and just like that, all the insanity returns. Now, speaking of insanity as well, I have another example. Jason Mers, who I've brought up on the show before, principal now of Talawanda Middle School, the only middle school in the Talawanda City School District in Oxford, Ohio. In this last board meeting, there was some interesting revelations, and it came out of the mouth of the superintendent, and it's exactly what I thought would happen, and I believe I even said it on the show, and sure enough, it happened. Jason Mers, of course, was under investigation under Title IX for, in my opinion, molesting a child in a bathroom stall. Wrote about it on Substack, brought it up on the show numerous times. If you've listened to the show before, you're well versed in the situation. He was brought back as the Kramer Elementary School principal at the end of last year, back in whatever it was, April or May, or even a little sooner than that. Much to the delight of the superintendent and anybody who's insane in the school district who apparently doesn't have a brain in their skull. But one of the things that was predicted was that when it came time for open enrollment, because this is an open enrollment area, certainly Ohio is, you can basically sign your child up for any public school in the general area. Same thing with private school, charter school, etc., and then of course you can always homeschool. Very easily, by the way. But in this particular situation, he was brought back as the Kramer Elementary School principal, only to shortly find out that there was apparently a mass exodus of parents who wanted to, again, not attend Kramer Elementary and have their children attend Kramer Elementary. Now, why would that be the case? Why would parents be signing up for the other two elementary schools and not want to sign their kids up for Kramer Elementary? So in the midst of all of that panic, which I'm sure was happening within the district office, Superintendent Ed Thoreau took it upon himself to move Jason Mers away from Kramer Elementary and place him in the only middle school in the entire district. And he thinks this is going to work out. How exactly? Again, he brought up and he used the word unprecedented in the last board meeting. That the exodus of all of these parents and these children and constantly signing up at Bogan Elementary School, which is on the not just the other side of town, ladies and gentlemen, it's out of town. It's way out of town. It's about 15, maybe even 20 minutes away out of town. But that eventually that had to be cut off because there were too many parents who again wanted to go to Bogan Elementary, which I hate to break it to everybody, Bogan Elementary is not good either, and their principal there is a whack job also. But with that said, they wanted away from Jason Mers. Why? Because he didn't molest a child? Because he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and so are the whack jobs who work in that building? Ladies and gentlemen, I have a picture that I've posted online, but I wasn't the first one to do it. Jason Mers was the first one to do it. And he's posted a lot of weird pictures of himself back when he was the Kramer Elementary principal of that building. One of them, of course, is him in a leotard, wearing a tutu. Again, this is a man who is married to a woman, apparently, and has 2 children. Is this what a straight man does? Does a straight man wear a leotard and a tutu to school and then take pictures of himself and then post it online? Thinking what? That it's funny? Is that, again, what a straight person does? I'll give you another example because I have this other picture, which, of course, he posted online also on his X account, which apparently he doesn't post there anymore. Too bad. I kind of wish he would. It's a picture of 7 people. I assume that they are, my God in heaven, I assume that they are all Kramer Elementary employees, or at one time were. And I've posted it again online on my social media accounts. You can take a look at it yourself. He's in the center back row of what appears to be some Barbie-themed day or something like that. I don't know if it's Halloween. Looks like it could be Halloween. I'm certainly scared to death with these weirdos. But either way, there's at least a few of them that are dressed up in Barbie-themed stuff. And guess who's dressed up as Ken? You guessed it, Jason Mers. Because that's what a straight person does, isn't it? I mean, Ryan Gosling can do it, and he's straight, but he's also getting paid millions of dollars to do it. Jason Mers is doing this for fun, for free. He could wear a suit and tie like every other straight male, but he doesn't. He dresses up like Ken from Barbie. And then they all dress up, and then they again have glitter hanging from the ceiling coming down through a doorway, and they have Barbie plastered over the doorway. This is not what a straight person does. This is what a closeted faggot does. 100%. This is exactly what a sexual groomer does. This is what a person does who is sexually confused and dealing with internal turmoil from their own sexual confusion in an effort to normalize how they actually feel on the inside to the outward audience. Because he's not just dressing up like this around adults. No. He's dressed up like this around minors. So my question then becomes this, among endless others. What parents send their children to an elementary school when your male principal, who's allegedly married to a woman and has 2 children, dresses like this, and those parents not only send their children, but think that that principal dressing like that in what is supposed to be a school is normal behavior? Do they have no concept, again, of sexual grooming, sexual perversions, role-playing, cosplay? It's designed to be of a sexual nature. It isn't normal, and it doesn't belong in a school environment. Not to mention, at face value, it's obviously weird. But again, it's obvious to us. For them, for those that, again, support all of that and believe all of that, they take their nighttime, whatever you want to call them, nighttime perversions, private, in your own home, out in society perversions, and they bring them right into the school to normalize all of it among one another. But they don't understand, because they live in an echo chamber of faggotry, apparently, that there are other elementary schools that are run professionally that would never do this under any circumstance. What Jason Mers has done with his clothing alone is effeminate. That's it. It's the effeminization of presentation. He's showing people and slowly normalizing over the course of time that wearing such clothes in a school environment, no less, which is a working environment around minors, is acceptable. In particular, if there's an activity taking place that same day. Now, I've said it before, and I mean it, that if a male principal, or a male, I should say, any male, ends up becoming a principal of an elementary school, out of the gate, that should be a red flag. Because there's probably something softer about that male that might lean more toward a gay sexual lifestyle. It's not always true, but let's face it, how many straight masculine males apply for such a position? Not many. So there's that. And he's held on to that position for over a decade. At least. So again, keep that in mind. But for me personally, that's a red flag. When you have an individual then again dressing up for particular events or around particular holidays in a particular way that tend to be more effeminate or flashy or draw attention to yourself, or even again wearing a leotard and a tutu to try to normalize that, or because again you think it's funny or whatever else, when in fact, again, like I said earlier, you're just expressing your inner turmoil of what's really going on between your ears. And again, trying to normalize that among everybody. You basically become a Bruce Jenner. You're basically Bruce Jenner walking around in the background of a Kardashians episode, slowly becoming a woman, so you think. It's the same kind of thing. But if I were ever an elementary school principal, which would never happen, I would never ever want to do that job, and that's already in my mind and has always been in my mind. I never wanted to be an administrator, period. Never. It was always in my head, you will never be an administrator, don't ever be an administrator. And I wasn't. I never even became a counselor. Could have done that job probably just fine, wasn't interested. School teacher, one of the better ones I thought. That's my opinion, but either way, that was the case. But if I was ever an elementary school principal, hypothetical, I would never dress up like that. I would never dress up for events. I would discourage it, as a matter of fact. I know elementary school principals are a bit, certainly teachers are a bit, they're a bit out there. Some of them, again, they live for the holidays, and they'll dress up for any flippin' holiday no matter what. They'll dress up differently for every single day based on the lesson that they're teaching. Hell, if I had $1 for every single time an elementary school teacher dressed up like a turkey around Thanksgiving, we'd have lots of dollars. Let's just put it that way. But you could never get me to dress up like a turkey, let alone Ken from the movie Barbie. I think you get the point. Jason Mraz is going to reoffend. There is no doubt about it. The question is who does he reoffend, where does it happen, and do they do anything about it? Does he get caught again, legally speaking? It's only a matter of time. And then you talk about all hell breaking loose. And it will. And I'll be here for it, God willing. Now, moving on, there was also this, and this again reiterates an old point that I've made in the past, which is if the media does not jump all over a university or school shooting and run it on a loop, basically all day long, and then bring in all their talking heads to basically talk about it, then, ladies and gentlemen, the shooting probably happened. But if a school shooting, again, is portrayed as having taken place, even though it really hasn't, you can tell that it's fake because, again, the news will run with the story no matter what else is going on in the world. We have breaking news, and then all of a sudden they have endless cameras there already, endless people, staged event, the whole thing. And then they never move off of the story. They just stay on it for hours. And it'll go from one show to the next show to the next show throughout the course of the day. That's when it's a staged shooting. But there was a shooting the other day at Virginia State University. Suspects in custody. Cameron Harris, a black kid. Again, One of the reasons why the media didn't run with it. Number one, it was a black kid, and number two, it was real. And they weren't behind it as the media. It wasn't staged, it was legit. It says the following here, again, this is even CNN. Cameron Harris of Henrico, Virginia, is not a student on campus, nor were 4 of the people injured. Chesterfield County Police said in a statement, they ranged in age from 17 to 23. One of the injured, a 20-year-old, is a student and has been released from the hospital, authorities said. The victims' names have not been released. They've given no information about a possible motive. Police obtained 8 felony warrants for Harris, including the malicious wounding and the use of a firearm in the commission of a felony. It wasn't immediately clear whether he had an attorney or could speak on his behalf. It was just a black kid shooting at other black kids. But again, notice how the media just glosses over it and then that's it. So, yeah. School's back in session, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. One final one here. Slide right into the jab talk as usual. This was from AlexJonesLive.com. High school football player star 17 dies suddenly following heart attack at morning practice. Of course, people will blame the heat, won't they? High school football player in Texas suffered a medical emergency this week at morning practice. This was, of course, last week, and died in the hospital just days later. The incident unfolded around 8 a.m. on last Monday, with Austin Travis County EMS telling the Austin American-Statesman that they had responded to a reported seizure. The student was identified as 17-year-old Lake Travis, varsity star Odin Hensley, who reportedly suffered a cardiac arrest and was transported to Dell Children's Medical Center via helicopter, where he was placed in the intensive care unit. Looks like he was a lineman, and there you have it. 17-year-olds, ladies and gentlemen, don't have heart attacks. Unless, of course, they've been poisoned. That's when they have a heart attack. And you don't have a heart attack at 8 in the morning when it's not even hot out yet. So you can't strike this up to heat. He was probably injected, probably multiple times. That's it. But remember, Matt Wyatt said everybody should get vaccinated and you should trust the science. So disregard the death, ladies and gentlemen. A school board member in Southwest Ohio says you should get vaccinated. Therefore, you should get vaccinated clearly. I'm being facetious, obviously. Don't do that. And here's why. Speaking of jab stuff now, a couple of Substacks, of course, from last week, and the most recent, not just the insurance one, which is beyond obvious, and apparently some people on Substack don't think that it's obvious or that there's a correlation between higher insurance rates, specifically spiking around 2021, and the COVID injected. But, again, yeah. It's mind-numbingly dumb that people wouldn't understand that basic correlation. If you're an insurance company and you have 10 clients and 5 of them die, what are you going to do? You have to make ends meet, so you're going to increase the cost of your insurance for the living because you can't collect from the dead. I've brought this up on the show before numerous times, certainly back in the day. Again, it's not rocket science here. That's what numerous companies were doing. It's what hospitals were doing. It's not just what health insurance companies are doing, but it's what car insurance companies are doing. You can't charge a dead person for car insurance. You can't bill them. You'll never collect. Same thing with renter's insurance. Same thing with homeowner's insurance. If they're not alive, you'll never collect. I placed the article over on greatawakening.win. And it got a lot of comments and a lot of upvotes, which was kind of cool. Again, I'm glad people read it. But at the exact same time, one person decided to start complaining, and they were just like, we need to do better. There isn't any context in this article. Sure there is. The only context you have to understand is that anybody can look up these statistics. Anybody can look up these line graphs. It isn't tough. It's really not. It's very easy. You can even use an AI system and it'll openly show you the line graphs that produce this, which is exactly where I obtain the information, because it pulls it from the exact sources that hold this information. When you see a line on a line graph, shoot directly upward, and we're talking like multiply, big time, when it comes to cost. specifically at the year of 2021. In regards, again, to health insurance specifically, but other insurances as well, but specifically health insurance, what was going on then during 2021 that would cause such a thing? I think we know. Well, it was COVID, Sean. It was all the sick from COVID. No, it was the dead. It was people dying. And then, of course, health insurance companies needing to make up the difference. And the only way that they can do that in a short amount of time is you increase the premiums. That's it. That's all the article was about. I was just making a very basic point. But again, I don't know how anybody can attempt to even refute that. I mean, what do they think it was? That other deadly thing that was taking place at the exact same time in 2021? What was the other deadly thing that people were doing to themselves during that time? Were they overdosing on ice cream? Were ice cream sales through the roof? I don't think so. People were plunging needles into their bodies multiple times a year, at least 3 times a year, plus a flu shot probably. And people are wondering again why health insurance is through the roof. One person left a comment and they said the following, quote, "I'm an 86-year-old widow living on Social Security. My health insurance rates have skyrocketed. Between Medicare and my supplemental insurance, I pay about $8,000 a year. The increase this year was more than my Social Security COLA. So I have less income than last year and even higher expenses with food, homeowners insurance, and gas. I'm drowning. I can't imagine what families are paying these days. Nothing seems to change and nobody seems to care. Why do we keep re-electing these people? All they seem to do is go on vacation," unquote. Yeah. It's become untenable because people bought the lie because they knew that they would. These companies, these health insurance companies knew that they would buy it. The media was pushing it. Who funds the media? Health insurance companies. Hospital policies, of course, existed, and those hospital policies were allowing the hospitals, and specifically the doctors and nurses, specifically the doctors, to profit immensely. This has all been proven. This is not some theory. It's legit. I then put together another one titled Combining GLP-1’s, the fat shots, so to speak, with mRNA shots. What could possibly go wrong? Again, people do this. It's like people who, again, eat at fast food restaurants on a day in and day out basis. There are people, again, who take the GLP-1 shots, which is synthetic snake venom, among other additives. It's not the real GLP-1 gut biomes that exist within your own gut that your body naturally makes. It's, again, a side effect of actual snake venom that's attacking the hormones that control your digestive organs, which give off, of course, the hormones associated with wanting to eat, specifically tryptophan, among others. But there are people, again, who take those shots on their routine basis, whether they be once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, however it is, and then individuals who are also COVID injected or flu shot injected with mRNA. When you combine these two, what do you think is going to happen? Now, what I did in the article is I openly pointed out that when I use the AI system, you can basically do this. You can manipulate the AI system, not to get the answer that you want, but if you know what you're talking about, and you know, again, because you have a factual basis and an understanding of the issue at hand, you can manipulate the AI system to give you the answer that it doesn't want to give you. For example, if you were to tell the AI system, and again, use this terminology, which I think I specifically laid out in the Substack article, but if you ask it the question, does taking the GLP-1 shots in combination or again throughout an entire year along with mRNA shots, is that going to have a negative impact on my health? Overwhelmingly, the answer that the AI system will give you, while referencing mainstream media outlets and mainstream science outlets, it will say no, that it's not going to harm you, that it's not harmful. In fact, it openly tells you that it provides anti-inflammatory properties. Now, when a person hears anti-inflammatory, they think that that's a good thing, which typically speaking, it would be. Your body's not inflamed, your blood isn't inflamed, therefore your organs aren't inflamed, you're not going to get sepsis, you're not going to get arthritis, you won't have skin problems, you won't get cancer, you won't die. That's what they think when they hear that. The problem is that, well, it's not even a problem, it's just the workaround, which I highlight in the article, is you can openly reword it and basically say, okay, what if a person takes GLP shots, but they also take a medication, in quotes, that causes autoimmune conditions? And of course, is that going to be problematic? And it says that, yes, it can be. But then, of course, it says, well, it can also have anti-inflammatory properties, but maybe not. So then you have to get even more specific. You have to know what is in GLP-1 shots, and then you have to know what's in COVID shots. And the one similarity that they both have is it's synthetic snake venom, which, of course, I've written before on my show. It's been in numerous documentaries like Watch the Water. Dr. Brian Ardis brought this up and has researched this at great length. And one of the other Asian doctors who openly researched this too ended up dead in his recliner from a gunshot wound. And they never caught the person. So that's a real thing too. Either way, that's how I reworked it. I basically said, okay, what if a person takes GLP-1 shots along with synthetic snake venom? And it provided the answer that you would typically expect. Because again, that's almost an unavoidable problem. And certainly an answer that you can't run away from. And here's what it said. Again, effects of actual snake venom or synthetic toxin analogs, specifically again in combination with GLP shots. It said the following: synthetic versions of individual components or crude mimics would produce similar toxic effects, scaled by dose, purity, route, and frequency. Routine or repeated intake is extremely dangerous and not done rather therapeutically outside tightly controlled medical research or rare experimental self-immunization cases. Translation: yes, it's deadly. It's only supposed to be done, if ever, in tightly controlled medical research, which isn't what's happening now. The general public is the guinea pig. The general public is the research. Why do you think they're pushing so many shots of different kinds on different people? It's a depopulation agenda, among endless other agendas, but that's one of them. And then it runs down the acute effects, even from a single or repeated lower level exposure of synthetic medical snake venom. It says local tissue damage, severe pain, swelling, blistering, necrosis, and potential permanent scarring or loss of function. Does that sound like what's happened with the COVID shots? Yeah. That's also what happens when you're bit by a venomous snake. Systemic toxicity, again, bleeding, clotting, blood pressure, muscle breakdown, kidney injury, neurological symptoms, paralysis, respiratory failure, multi-organ stress. And then it actually listed and referenced the white papers showing exactly that this has been studied. GLP-1's, again, I'm going to wrap this up, but GLP-1's in short are synthetic snake venom, along with, of course, the COVID shots and any mRNA shot. And when you take them together, you're not going to make it. Catherine Herridge even put this out recently, and it was so new that I threw it back in the Substack article as a later edit. She said the following: new Fauci email. System blinked red. Just months after the COVID-19 vaccine emergency authorization, the acting FDA commissioner flagged adverse events, quote unquote, from all three of the current vaccines. The main complaint is that, quote, no one takes them seriously, no one knows how to treat them, and there is no effort to study this, unquote. And then, quote, I think it would be worthwhile to do a study and evaluate a cohort of these individuals, unquote. And then said, quote, I doubt the industry would support for obvious reasons, but my experience is that if you let a problem fester, then it will come back to bite you later, and you are not prepared, unquote. That was from Janet Woodcock, sent to Francis Collins and Anthony Fauci. Subject, vaccine adverse events. They knew. They knew what it was doing. They knew what was going on. Again, the videos that existed back in the day on Rumble, specifically BitChute, that's when BitChute was one of the hottest places to go on the internet when it came to videos, specifically of the jab injured and nurse testimonies, saying that they took the shot, they were 100% healthy, they took the shot, and then this happened. And one of those very famous nurses, who was in one of those very early videos, has now died. She actually died not that long ago. It was like a month or two ago. She was, again, heavier, but she was on a cane, and she was uncontrollably shaking, with leg tremors, arm tremors, the whole thing. I remember that video like it was yesterday. That is a neurological poison. That's a venom, because the same symptoms happen with an animal that gets bit by a snake. But remember, everybody, a Southwest Ohio school board member named Matt Wyatt of the Talawanda City School District in Oxford, Ohio, wants you to get vaccinated because the proof is already out there and we've already studied this. They don't cause autism. They're safe and effective. Trust the science, ladies and gentlemen. All Matt Wyatt has to do, and all any school board member has to do, is look around at your staff members and count the number of staff members that you have who are sick, chronically ill, or dead. And then ask them to list the ailments that they have had as a result of either after taking the shots. We'll just do a timetable question like that. What's happened to you after taking the shots? What health impacts have you had? What are all of the symptoms that you've experienced? Wouldn't that be an interesting survey to deliver to American K-12 school employees and even university employees? Why isn't that survey being distributed? I wonder why. Because they wouldn't want the answers. It's that simple. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for listening as always. I'll catch you on Wednesday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.